Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 4 on Draftkings and FanDuel, and I've got some NFL DFS stacks to talk about. I'm going to talk about 5. I think that there are way more than 5 viable stacks on this slate, and I'm not saying that these are, 100% the most plus EV stacks on the slate, but I think that these are going to be 5 very good stacks on the slate. We have, for different reasons, we have 7 games on this slate where teams have implied team totals of 29 or more points. The Ravens are 30, the Cowboys 29, the Saints 29.25, the Texans 29, the Seahawks 30.5, the Rams 30.5, the Chiefs 30.5. Those teams are expected to score around that many points. If they score that many points, because quarterback scoring is more tied to efficiency than volume, and quarterback scoring correlates more with implied team totals than anything else, we could theoretically just say that those 7 stacks are really good stacks and go with them. So what I'm not going to do is just stick to that. I'm going to give you some top stacks. I'm also going to give you talk about bring back stacks, whether we should double stack them. And we're going to look at building those stacks and building lineups in the Rotogrinders lineup builder. This top stack show brought to you by Rotogrinders every single week. If you use the link that's down below, there's going to be one right in the pinned comment, smizzle.tv/rotogrinders. If you want to type it in yourself, because you're that sort of a manual individual, you can get in where you fit in. They have a monthly, they have a 5-day, and they have an annual. I've said this with other packages that are that people have access to. If you want to get in for 5 days, $14.99 for 5 days. You get in on a Thursday. That gives you the Thursday night game. That gives you the Sunday main slate. That gives you the Sunday night football showdown slate. That gives you the Monday night football showdown slate, where you can really put the optimizer through its paces and see what you can do with it. And you can always upgrade to the monthly or the annual. This is the core 4 membership that we're looking at here. So that is where I think if you are new to using optimizers, you should try and start with those 5-day plans and then upgrade as you wish, if it's something that you think is good for you. So I've got 5 stacks that I want to talk about. We're going to get right to them. I want to tell you guys that I do appreciate all the support on the channel. All the views have been absolutely through the roof and completely bonkers. We've been going with the 10% rule. We need 10% of the views to turn into likes. That's 1 in 10 people. So if 15,000 people watch this video, 15,000 views, this video needs 1,500 plus likes. It's up to you. I appreciate you guys coming back. Click something, like, subscribe, ring the notifications bell, leave a reply, click some damn thing, and let's get right to the show. So looking at all these different guys, like I said, Lamar Jackson, if you want to stack him, go ahead, right? There's a couple guys that you can stack him with, and it's totally fine. You want to stack Patrick Mahomes because this offense is probably going to score 30 points every single week, or most weeks, unless they're playing San Diego, apparently. Go ahead. The first stack that I want to focus on, though, is Russell Wilson. And there's a couple reasons. One, he's absolutely white hot. I don't feel like we're chasing the ball around the roulette wheel here, because he's, I think he's got to come back to earth at some point, because he's been impossibly efficient. Russ is one of the most efficient quarterbacks of all time, with like a touchdown percentage over 6%. Him and Aaron Rodgers have the 2 highest efficiency ratings for a quarterback in terms of touchdown percentage for their career since 2000. Better than Peyton Manning, better than Tom Brady, better than Drew Brees. Those 2 are the best. So his career rate of 6.x% is phenomenal. I think he's sitting at something like 13% of his passes are turning into touchdowns right now. Now, that's not sustainable. That's going to regress somewhere. Maybe it comes down to like 9%. We've seen guys sustain a 9 or a 10% rate in a single season. Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago, Lamar Jackson last year. Those things always regress over time. But right now, it does not seem that people can really figure out what they want to do, defensive coordinators, I mean, with these Seattle pass catchers. And when we take a look at who he's got, especially with Chris Carson not expected to play this weekend, Tyler Lockett's been outstanding, good target floor every week, and DK Metcalf been also outstanding, with probably more touchdowns than he should have scored based on the amount of usage that he's getting around the goal line. I think he's had 1 end zone target so far. He has 3 touchdowns. If you listen to Mike Clay on ESPN and look at his OTD, which is kind of expected touchdown rates, he should not even have 1 touchdown this year, but he has 3 and could have had 4 because of the one that got knocked out of the back of the end zone. volume will always correct efficiency for running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. It's my belief that DK Metcalf will see an increase in end zone targets, which will buoy his touchdown expectation. Right now, if things remain the way that they are and he's not getting end zone targets, that's not going to sustain. But I think it will get to that point. I'll take a look here over at NFLsavant.com, which just gives us a quick look at the targets and where they've gone. 31% of the targets for Russ Wilson have gone to Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf has seen 21.5% of the targets. And then we go down to Chris Carson at like 11.5, Greg Olsen at 11.5. You know where the target's going to go. Over 50% of Russ Wilson's passes are going to one or both of those two guys. So when I'm building lineups, and we're going to head over here to the Rotogrinders lineup builder to take a look at this. We're going to go to our player groups. We're going to go to team player groups because I'm going to do this in here this week. Hopefully you guys can see this on the screen. I'll make it a little bit bigger if you can't. So we go down here to Seattle. We click that one. It shows us all the players on Seattle, and they instantly group everybody for you. You have to activate the stack. So like these, it's not going to build me Murray stacks. It's not going to build me Jackson stacks. It's not going to build me Allen stacks because I haven't opened them up to build it. You go through here and you just click the guys that you want. First, you say which players that you want to use. I want to use between 1 and 2 of his pass catchers. I'm not going to use Carlos Hyde, Disley. I'll leave Olsen and his 11.5% in there. Not going to use Hollister. Not going to use him. I know that David Moore's been, a guy that vultures touchdowns, but I'm going to limit this to 3 dudes, and they're going to be these 3. Olsen, Lockett, and Metcalf as my primary stack. My bring back stack, you go over here to opponent player groups, and then we click on Seattle Wilson. This is still going to be exactly 1, and I'm going to apply this to all opponent groups. I just want 1 guy coming back, and then we can change it if we want to have a double. For his bring back stack, there aren't that many guys that I want to consider. I know that Myles Gaskin has gotten good usage in the past game. I will use him. I am interested in Gesicki because of his usage, and we'll get to that in just a bit. Isaiah Ford, sure. Bowden, no. Hollins, no. Parker, yes. Williams, yes. Jakeem Grant, no. So it will pick one of these players in any Russ Wilson group. One of these 5 Miami Dolphins is going to be in that stack with 1 or 2 of the Seattle pass catchers, giving us a primary and then a bring back stack. The next stack that I want to talk about kind of works pretty well here. It's that bring back stack with the Miami Dolphins. Ryan Fitzpatrick is entirely too cheap this week on DraftKings, and you look at where his targets have gone: Gesicki, Parker, Gaskin, Ford, Williams. There's 5 guys that get targets on this team, and that's basically it. We can stack with 1 or 2 of these guys. I spoke about in Best Buys this week, and if you have not read Best Buys, it's an ESPN Plus piece. It's available every single Thursday that comes out with 2,000 words and a lot of the players that I like this week at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, as well as a few defenses in there. Gesicki leading the team in targets, and then it's basically everybody else. One stat that I brought up in that article, of the 7 best games that Fitzmagic has had in his career, we're looking at an opponent that has scored 31 points per game on average. Well, Seattle has a 30.5% or 30.5 team total this week. Highly likely that they're going to score about that much, which means Fitz is going to have to make things happen. And Seattle's defense has not been good, and he's only 5,400. This should be like a 59 or a 6K quarterback. So he's too cheap. I think he's going to be extremely popular in cash. I think that we can use him in tournaments as well with the guys that I just spoke about, including Myles Gaskin, including Parker, Williams, Ford, and especially considering Gesicki for stacks when you're talking about 1 or 2 wide receivers that we're going to be using in the Wilson stacks. Gesicki makes for either a great stack with Fitz or a bring back stack. Now, for those of you who are fast forwarding through this video and about to jump into the replies and say, are you really going to play 5 Miami Dolphins? No, I'm not. Don't be an idiot and look for lineups to copy paste, because I'm using this as a tool to kind of give you some direction of what to do. This is not a lineup that you should be playing, so don't be an idiot. But as we go over to the lineup, the group builder, go back to team player groups. We walk over here to Miami. We look at the guys that we want. As I said, we want to focus on the 5 gentlemen that we had talked about before for our primary stack. Devontae Parker, yes, no. I can actually apply this rule 1 to 2 players for every team that we're using for these stacks. Very easy to build. Go to our opponent player groups. We're going to limit it to the 3 guys that we wanted. And if we want to use running backs in the bring back stack, I'm totally okay with that as well. This team, we're going to have 1 to 2. Okay. So I'm okay with Fitz coming back with 2 guys on Seattle because of how many points we expect from Seattle. I don't know if Carlos Hyde's going to be the guy. I don't know if Homer is going to be the guy. We can decide that by the weekend. I will be leaving one of them in these stacks. Not going to use Disley. Am going to use Olsen. Not going to use anybody else except for Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And I may have to boost or weight up Lockett and Metcalf because I want them to be the guys that are in the majority of those lineups. Moving on to our next player that I think is a good value play this week and a team that has one of the higher totals, a 29-point total on this week, is the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson is 6,600. If we were to look at the quarterbacks this week, a lot of the top-notch guys are 7K and above. For the first week, we've seen the ceiling on quarterbacks kind of go way up. It's been one guy. It's been like Mahomes and it's been Lamar Jackson. But now we've got guys like Josh Allen up there. We've got Dak Prescott up there, Russ Wilson up there. So getting somebody like Deshaun Watson at this price point, considering that this is the first actually good matchup that he has faced this season, Kansas City, in Kansas City, against Baltimore, and at Pittsburgh are 3 really, really tough matchups for any team, and let alone this Houston Texans team. So he's performed admirably, but I think if you look at the schedule, I think the 25 DraftKings points games are on the come here with Minnesota, who has not done a good job of stopping anybody. If you want to use David Johnson in a stack with him, I typically don't use running backs in a stack with my quarterback. I will allow it. I'm not going to say that the optimizer can't use them, but it's highly, highly, highly improbable for a quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, and pass catcher, wide receiver or tight end, to score 25 plus DraftKings points in the same week. And it's the usual subjects who have done that. It's been Breeze, Kamara, Thomas. It was Roethlisberger, Bell, and Brown. It was Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, and Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill that were the ones that have done that. So very difficult for a quarterback to go off and a running back to go off and a pass catcher in the same week, enough so that it's going to put you in position to win a tournament. So I kind of steer clear of using the running back in the stacks. I stick to the wide receivers. Will Fuller has basically been averaging 2 DraftKings points per target. Seems pretty good to me. If he gets the ball, or two DraftKings points per catch. Seems pretty good to me. 5,900. I'm going to be including him in the stacks. Randall Cobb, Cook. Probably not going to include one of the tight ends. This is a very easy stack to build. And then we're going to build our bring back stacks as well. So heading back over to the Rotogrinders lineup builder, go to team player groups. We're going to head down to Houston and Watson. We're going to make sure that we use 1 to 2 of these players. If Duke Johnson's out, obviously that changes things with David Johnson, but I'm not going to include him still to this. I think he's a great standalone value and to use as a bring back stack in this game if you're using Kirk Cousins stacks, but probably not going to include him in my Deshaun Watson stacks. Very hard for both to score over 25 points in the same game with one of his pass catchers. Not going to include him. I'm just going to include probably the 3 wide receivers right here, using 1 or 2 of them in every one of those lineups. Looking at the opponent player groups, going to use a bring back stack here. And I really just want 3 guys. There's 3 that we're going to focus on. It's Dalvin Cook, who makes for a great bring back stack. BC Johnson is out. Justin Jefferson had a breakout game. Adam Thielen going to be utilized in that bring back stack as well. I'm going to use exactly 1 of these guys in this stack so that we get lineups that we want. And I'll do a run at the end so that we can kind of see where things end up. The 4th stack that I want to talk about here is game flow or game script dependent, and it's going to be Cam Newton. Yes, he had a bad game last week, but it was somewhat predictable that he was not going to throw the ball a ton. Less than 30 attempts for Cam Newton. He's not the most efficient passer in the world, so we do need his volume to increase and his scoring, his team's scoring to increase. Yes, they scored 36 points, but when they play from ahead, they're going to run the hell out of the football. That is just the way that this New England Patriots team is going to operate. When they play from behind, as they did in week 2, and as they project to on the road in Kansas City in week 4, there is a path to 35 plus attempts. They are going to have to keep their foot on the gas, and there are some great value plays on DraftKings that we can pair him with in N'Keal Harry. If you want to go with Edelman, I'm fine with that, using him in a group. And BYRD is only 3K. Again, in games where they'd have to run it, BYRD is not going to be somebody that we're going to want to play in those weeks. It's also going to keep his price down for the weeks where New England is not going to be favored and they're going to have to throw the ball more. And you see what he did in week 2 for 3K. He's not going to kill us. He's definitely not going to kill us in cash games. He has the possibility of 5xing this salary, 4 or 5xing this salary without scoring a touchdown, so he can get there on volume alone. And if he does find his way into the box, he's an absolute smash play at minimum salary. So good floor, very possible ceiling. Not going to utilize any of the tight ends in this group as we look at New England's targets. Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry, Rex Burkheads are elevated because James White has been out with his family issues soon that have been there for the last 2 weeks, let's say, and BYRD. So James White back at practice. If he comes back in, Burkhead's targets will come down as James White will go back to his normal role. Burkhead has been playing in that White role for the last couple of weeks. We go over to the lineup builder. We bring up team player groups. We head down to New England. Newton. I'm going to make it just, we could include James White. If we get clarity that he's going to play, I would include him. If not, I will include Burkhead. Let's assume White is playing. We'll take Burkhead out of there. Asiasi, no. Bird, yes. Harry, yes. The other 2 guys, no. Use 1 to 2 of these players. If you want to limit it to 1 because of Cam's highly likelihood of running the ball when they get inside the 5, when they go to that super jumbo package and you're not going to get a lot of end zone targets, they kind of have to score from a little bit deeper. I'm fine with just allowing 1, or you can say players to use 0 to 1. You can go naked Cam in your stacks while still building stack lineups to go with him. Bringing our bring back stacks now, going same thing, going back down to here. They're playing against the Chiefs. We want basically all of the Chiefs' weapons to be utilized in our Cam lineups. We're going to use 1 to 2 of these guys. Sammy Watkins, I'm not a big Sammy Watkins guy for fantasy. Probably going to X him out of these groups. Don't want that many lineups to have him. Probably not going to use Mecole Hardman either. Going to focus on the absolute studs from Kansas City because that's where I think a lot of the scoring is going to concentrate on. If you want to include the lower percentage guys like Hardman and Watkins, you can go ahead and do that. I'm not telling you can't. I'm just showing you how I'm going to build these groups. And then our final one that we're going to look at is the cover boy. I don't think Jared Goff's going to be higher than 5% in tournaments this weekend, but he does share the highest team total on the week and is playing at home. We do know who we can stack him with. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods have dominated with 23.5% each of the target market share here. Tyler Higbee seems to be a threat once they get around the goal line, but has only run like 40% of routes per Jared Goff's dropbacks. He would be probably the final guy that I would include in these stacks. As much as I like Van Jefferson, as much as I like Josh Reynolds, they just aren't included enough for me to want to have major shares of them unless one of Woods or Kupp is out. And they kind of split time, and I think Jefferson's really good, and I think Reynolds is a good pro, but they're not players that I think are going to win me a tournament this week. Could happen though, right? With a total of 30.5, either one could find their way into the box and be a good value play for you. So looking over back to the DraftKings menu here, taking them off, clicking the Rams. Goff is 6,700. He's priced up to a point where I think you're going to pay up to be contrarian here. So this is my contrarian stack of the week. And it's weird to say that a team that has a team total of 30 points is a contrarian stack, but I think that they are, because I feel like more people are going to gravitate over to Henderson Jr. at 5,800. And if they're playing him for reasons I mentioned before, that means that they're probably not going to be playing Jared Goff. I love Cooper Kupp. You guys know that. Woods, we can play Higbee. There's also bring back players on the Giants. So let's build that group and then we'll do a run. So LAR, Goff group. I'm going to keep it real simple. Why am I, what? Oh, that's the bring back group. I was very confused for a second. Like, they are not on the Rams. So I'm going to X out Henderson from this group. He has some inclusion in the pass game, but we're not going to be including running backs in our passing groups. I'm not going to include Everett. I will include Higbee, but I will advise caution because of the amount of routes he's running per dropback. Just understand that when you're including Higbee, he is very much a boom or bust player. He is a high ceiling, very low floor guy. I'm going to keep this to 3. I'm going to up this to 1 or 2. We're going to build our bring back group with the Rams. I'm going to allow specific players from this group. I am going to allow Evan Ingram. I know that he has not done anything from fantasy purposes this year. His targets have been solid. His catches have been all right. 4 catches or more in all 3 games this year, but he's running a ton of routes per dropbacks and he's getting a lot of targets. I'm always going to bet on volume leading to more volume. You can't score if you're holding your helmet on the sideline. If you're not playing a lot of snaps, he is playing a lot of snaps. You can't catch the ball if you're pass blocking. They don't use him to pass block. So he's always out in the route, which means that I want to use him in those lineups. I'm going to use exactly one of these guys to bring it back with. You can include running backs here if you choose. I'm not going to be using any of those guys in my groups there. We go over here to player groups. We have our, where is it? We go to stacks. Your quick stacks, a great option here. If it's not going to use the guys that we've built specific groups for, you can have it use a primary stack in 100% of your lineups, a secondary stack in as many of your lineups as you want, where you can dictate what it's using. You can tell it which teams you want to use those secondary stacks from. If you just want to focus on the highest scoring possible games, then you just X out the ones that are not high scoring games for your secondary stacks, and it'll only focus on putting a secondary stack in. That's a stack without a quarterback, right? So again, this is a philosophy of it's easier to be right about 2 things than it is to be right about 5 or 6 things individually. We can not include them. We can not include, I'll include them. And we can include them. We come up here. I've got it set to build 147 because, as you guys know, I make 3 lineups by hand, then I build the other 147 using the lineup builder. It's going to go through here. It's going to try and build every lineup that we want to build. And as always, if you go to the player pool, my best buys from my best buys article on ESPN are included. So if you are a Rotogrinder sub in the lineup HQ, you can click on my face, which is right here at the top. And it'll give you it'll highlight the players that are my best buys for the week. Obviously, they have filters for Ian Hartitz, Mr. Tuttle as well, Bime4, Toe Tag and Tambo. I hate tongue twisters. Squirrel Patrol and Notorious's core plays. This will take a minute or whatever to build. Once we get there, we can see our allocations of all these players. It will build the stacks that we want. You can then go through and make sure it has the allocations you want by position or of individual players. But the higher correlated lineups have shown that they do win tournaments because, as I said, it is much easier to win a tournament when you've got 2 things to be right about if one of these games shoots out. And last week, when we had Seattle and Dallas as our top 2 stacks on the week, it was very easy for us to look at it and say, well, if we just stack Seattle and bring it back with Dallas, or if we just stack Dak with 1 or 2 of his players and bring it back with 1 or 2 of the Seattle players, Wilson to Lockett, also having Metcalf in a double stack, bringing it back with Michael Gallup won you basically all the money in week 3. Same thing happened in week 1 where it was Rodgers to Devontae Adams, bringing it back with Adam Thielen in that week. It's the easiest path to get yourself to the top. This is not a secret. Basically, everybody knows it. If you didn't know it before, hopefully you know it now. And the lineup builder's up to 145 of 147. It's almost done. Here's the guys that we have. Here's all the different lineups. We can look at our exposures. You can click the team stacks and it shows you 16 teams have used 2+ player team stacks. 16 teams used in 3+ player team stacks. And we can also look at our game stack summary. We have 3 guys from Houston and 1 guy from Minnesota in 16%. So it gives you an outstanding breakdown as well as showing you all of the lineups that you can sort by whatever you want to sort by. Right now, they're sorted by projected fantasy points. We can sort by total salary, percent of played, or the order that they were created in. So a lot of great tools over on Rotogrinder for you guys to check out. Do me a favor, click the link down below. Even if you don't intend to buy, click the link, like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, reply. There's so many things for you to click. It costs absolutely no money. So thank you guys for being here. Look out for another video. It's going to be right over my face.
He's a legend.